Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are right at the top of the 1 o'clock hour, so thank you for your patience as we get you in from the waiting room. Today, we have a really exciting agenda planned for you, and I am so just honored to have our panelists with us. I'm going to hand this over to Jen Morrell to give us an introduction and welcome from the center, and we'll get started.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Jen Morrell, and if this is your first prevention exchange, welcome. We like to use this hour to do a little bit of informal panel discussion followed by presentation. So we like to be highly interactive from the audience. Prevention Exchange is a monthly series, and today we're really talking about key considerations for making sure the messages that you are trying to put out in the community to promote mental, emotional, behavioral health reach your priority audiences. And the example that we're going to use to illustrate that are lessons from a Black youth suicide prevention campaign called Life is Better with You Here. And so we have our esteemed colleagues, Sharday Hollins and Tracy Garrett with us. Before we turn the microphone over and the slides over to Tracy and Sharday, I just wanted to share a little bit about the Center of Excellence in case you're not familiar. We really exist to serve as a central access point for all things prevention science across the state. We want to make it easy for you to find access to evidence-based resources, networks of individuals who can help think and, you can help grow with and learn with about prevention science. And then, of course, to help you support your goals for working in your communities and make sure that you have the resources related to research frameworks, evidence-based materials, whatever you need. We're here to be a resource for Ohio's prevention workforce. At the end of the session, I will have a QR code available that if you are not receiving our monthly newsletter, we'll invite you just to sign up so you can stay in the know about future prevention exchanges, offerings from the center. Sometimes we have grant funding available. So with that, we're going to roll right into, I'll pass the microphone back to Tessa Miracle, who is part of the team with the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation and helps to support the Center of Excellence. She is going to serve as our esteemed moderator for today's discussion. So Tessa, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, good afternoon. Yes, thank you so much for having me. If we haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Tessa Miracle, and I'm a research scientist at the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation. And I am absolutely thrilled to get to work with Sharday Hollins and Tracy Garrett today. Thank you so much for taking your time and your energy with us. The format for this month might look a little different than other months, and I just want to thank our panelists for infusing their own energy and their own design into this. So, and if you've attended exchanges in the past, what we typically do is we go into some breakout rooms and we stop the recording, and our panelists came in and said, "No, we're going to facilitate a discussion with a large group because we don't want to miss any critical insight from attendees." And I am just so grateful that you were direct in your needs, that you pushed us to make this a better experience. So thank you. So today we're going to stay in one room together, folks. You are welcome to participate in any way that is meaningful for you. If you are more comfortable having your camera off, that's fine. Typing in the chat, I will be looking for your comments, questions, and things like that in the chat. I'd like to invite our panelists to give us some brief introductions and tell us a little bit about the high level of your work, your mission, your vision, some of those pieces before we dive a little bit deeper into your experience. So Tracy, could you tell us a little bit about, what is Global Insight, and tell us a little bit about your role with Life is Better with You Here.
Okay, Tessa, thank you, and welcome everyone. My name is Tracy Garrett, and I am the President and CEO of Global Insight Productions. Global Insight Productions is a state and national certified minority and female-owned business that provides customers with creative and innovative concepts. Our services include everything from building online training platforms to podcasting, film and video production. And we do film and video productions around such things as creating micro-learning videos, PSAs, commercials, and documentaries. We also do web design, project management, marketing, and social media management. Now, the way that we got involved with Life is Better With You Here, we worked directly with the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, who hired us to oversee this Life is Better With You Here campaign, which focuses on providing support and resources to the Black community struggling with mental health disorders or suicidal ideations. Life is Better With You Here is aimed to address the unique challenges and stigmas faced by the Black community, promoting mental health and creating a safe space for individuals to seek. Our goal is to have a multi-generational approach that fosters that connection. And we not only focused on males and females, we're also focused on, the teens, the preteens, all the way up to our seniors, as well as the LGBT community. The campaign has gained national recognition, and our documentary, Corgis Run, has received the awards and selections from multiple film festivals. Also around the campaign, some of the things that we are doing to spread the word is everything from community events across the state. We have our quarterly events like town hall meetings. We just did our first conference this past June. I don't know if any of you all attended that, but it was well received. And it was a huge success because people were really wanting this information and so grateful that we had the town hall meetings and we did a big conference after all of our town hall meetings. So therefore, we are working on our second conference that's going to come this spring. We also have done like focus groups around high schools, middle schools, and universities. We also have podcasts. We're collaborating with so many different organizations. Our newsletter is growing, and our social media has really gained quite a few engagements. So clearly there is an interest in the subject. Everywhere we go, people are happy that we're focusing on the subject of mental health and suicide prevention. And people actually stop to share their stories and want to be a part of the campaign. So we started the conversation and we continue to work on removing the stigma.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you with us today. I'd like to also invite Sharday Hollins. Please, Ms. Sharday, tell us a little bit more about, relevant connections and your role with Life is Better With You Here.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Sharday Hollins, and I am the president and owner of Relevant Connections, where we do a variety of things in regards to grant writing as well as professional development for mental health and equity. We got involved with Life is Better With You Here in supporting nonprofit organization in receiving one of the grants that the Center of Excellence had in regards to promoting suicide prevention and awareness within the Black community, where we utilized the Life is Better With You Here campaign. So it was very exciting to be able to work with the product that oftentimes you see, but now we were able to really cultivate it and put it out there in the community we were able to utilize the videos as well as the images to make sure that the population that we wanted to serve, the population that we wanted to educate and to inspire, saw graphics and saw videos that looked like them, and that represented them. And we were able to do that. We definitely love the colors that are used. They're purple and yellow if you've never seen them, so they stand out. And then, there's those Laker fans out there, which a lot of young youth love them, some Kobe Bryant, so they just tie automatic. I don't know if y'all did that on purpose, but it was excellent because in their perspective, just little things like that is saying, hey, life is better with you here. We wish you were still here, Kobe, but we're here and we're here to stay. And so having these types of initiatives that show the Black community identifying their mental health, speaking about their mental health, and receiving help for their mental health and suicidal ideation was very important for the campaign. And we utilized that with young people so that they became the actual presenters of this information. They became kind of like our influencers, where we were able to provide some prevention education to them. So that way, when they did post the graphics, if somebody slid in their DMs or said something under their comments, they knew that they didn't have to be the fixer of it, right? Because that's not what we want them to be. That's not what we want anyone to be who's not within the field of mental health. But we do want you to be a link to a resource. So being able to work with young people to say, hey, you can share this information, and you can also become educated about the resources that can save your friends' lives. And that's what we were able to do with the funding that Legacies Empower got with the Prevention Center of Excellence, as utilizing the Life is Better With You Here campaign. So Sharday Hollins here is just super excited to be able to support organizations in grant writing and professional development within mental health and equity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am just delighted to have both of you here today. And I agree. I love the colors that were used in the campaign. I love that it was bright, that it really resonated with the message for me. And I really want to thank you both for sharing a little bit about your background. So, but now we have some time to dive a bit deeper into your experience, and particularly how you networked with stakeholders to expand and build upon your work. I know that, when in our discussion, as we were preparing, there were some really wonderful topic areas that you brought up that I think we really wanted to spend some time on today. So really looking at signs and symptoms in Black youth, external and internal behaviors to be looking out for, and then some perception pieces and ways to cope, as well as some ideas around why we might be seeing some changes in the data. So I'd like to hand it back to you ladies to talk a little bit deeper about, your experience, your partners, and some of the feedback you got.
Okay. Sharday, do you want me to go ahead and go
Yes.
first?
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
Because
Thank
what
you.
I'd like to do is share the website, and then Sharday's got some great information that she's going to follow up with. Let me share our website, Life is Better With You Here. I want you all to know that there is a resource that you can literally go to our website, and there's tons of resources and information on here. So if you go to lifeisbetterwithyouhere.org, you'll see that we have information for our children all the way up to our senior citizens. And we have a couple of commercials that we run regularly. One I would like to show you just so that you all will have an idea of what that would look like. Let's, how did that come across? Is that too big? Is it okay?
It looks just the right size on my screen. Folks,
Okay.
if this is too big for you, can you raise your hand?
Just wanted to make sure that
For
it came.
what it's worth, it's great for me, Tracy.
Okay.
That is the sound of a teen girl reaching out to you in the middle of a mental health crisis. Oftentimes, we miss the warning signs because we aren't paying attention. Teen suicides are plaguing the Black community. Awareness is key with suicide prevention. Learn more about warning signs at withyouhere.org.
Okay. So that just gives you an idea of what some of our commercials look like. We also have the conversations that focus on healthcare in the Black community. And this was done by our news station here in Columbus, NBC4. This gives a little bit more information about the organization. Here are some of our partners that we are currently working with. What's happening with Life is Better With You Here is literally becoming, it's a statewide campaign, and it's literally becoming this national campaign where we're getting individuals and organizations from across the states interested in posting some of this information on their websites as well. Also, if you go to our resources or our audiences, this gives a little bit more of a background for each of the audiences with videos. We have a video library here that you can go and get more information. We also have a YouTube channel. This gives information how we're across the state and what we're doing. Here are some resources. Warning signs, our monthly newsletter that we have, and here's our podcast. So we do a regular podcast, and it really focuses on mental health in the Black community. We do everything from self-care. As you see right now, we're talking about anger management, all the way up to grief and seasonal affective disorder. So there's quite a few episodes here. So please feel free to, if you have websites and you want to connect with our podcast to get the message out there, by all means, please do so. All of this resource and this information is here for you all. So if you ever need to utilize it in a presentation, it's here for you. And this is how our partners come in here and they gather this information and utilize it for some of the things that they have within their own communities. So I just wanted to start you off there. Sharday, take it away.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And what Tracy provides is really essential because it allows for us, we know so many times we think negatively about social media and how everybody has Twitter fingers or how everything is a TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But the work that's being done through Tracy and her team is now utilizing that platform to speak to the population that we actually need to reach. Because the population that we need to reach, they're not necessarily picking up an article or the newspaper or, reading something anymore. It needs to be quick. It needs to be simple. It needs to grab their attention. So the question is, how are we becoming culturally competent in the new culture of not just race, but of generation, of age, of technology, in order to make sure that we're reaching the populations that we want to be able to effectively serve. And so with the grant that was received, we were able to do that. And we were able to really utilize the technology to make sure that youth and people who care for Black males were able to get the information and be impactful. And so one of the questions that I get, my background, just to give you some background, is as a licensed independent social worker, and being able to provide direct practice for over a decade to youth in the community. One of the spaces that I worked in was in corrections. And I was actually assigned to what they called the gang unit for Ohio Department of Juvenile Justice, right? And recognizing that while I was on that unit, there was a lot of violent behavior that was going around, a lot of defiant behavior. And of course, I was around that when I was in the community, but it was more intensified here in the prison. I promise you this is tied to suicide, right? And many times when I'm working with individuals and they're wondering, well, how is it that we can make sure that we're allowing for Black youth specifically to know that life is better with them here? And we really have to first identify statistics. So I'm going to share my screen with you and I'm going to share a couple of things, and bear with me because I get excited, y'all. I'm going to tell you right now, I get excited. But I want you to be able to follow me. So I have some quick points that I want to be able to make to you. Let me make sure I'm showing the same screen. And I believe this is it. We're gonna make it big. These are just a few things that I want you to know, which some may already know. But before we get here, let me know who is here. Can you type in what your profession is? Educator, mental health provider, community supporter, parent. Tell me about who is in the room. And do I need to switch screens? You guys see the big one or the little one?
There we go. We can see the presentation only now.
Beautiful. All right, just tell me okay, you guys are talking to me in the chat. Hold on. You would think after it's a virtual stuff that we would have this down pat, but let me see.
Oh, Sade, we have them from all over. Public health educator, prevention, community support, service coordinator for youth, prevention consultants. Yes, this is quite interesting background. And all over. Operations coordinator, Summit County, community partnership. Thank you for your service, Larry and Aubrey, Ashley, Chris. Thank you all. McKenna.
Yes. And thank you for joining and participating. This is good, right? So all of us adjudicated youth. Okay, I see you, Chrissy. Yes. And so many times, violence prevention educator. Oh, Jackie. Okay, so yes, you guys are just speaking to me. I'm loving the group, because clearly you are working with Black youth. You care for Black youth. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever your colleagues are doing, that it's supporting the continuum of life as well as the continuum of culture. And so we know that the statistics have grown within suicide amongst Black youth, specifically within Black males. So I want you to see that number so that way we can just grasp it real quick. So this is from 1991 to 2017. So we know we're past 2017, but there was an increase in suicide attempts by 73% in Black adolescents. And for Black males, an increase of 122%. That required medical care, which suggests that is a higher lethal rate for suicide attempts for this group, which means that when a Black male says that he is suicidal or experiences suicidal ideation, he is more likely to actually attempt and commit, or attempt in a way that would cause them to need medical care. So we have to do a level of prevention to literally save a life, because if the thought is there is not most of the time, there's not a second chance for this group. So it's important that we realize that. And we recognize that when we examine the effectiveness of existing evidence-based suicide prevention programs with Black youth populations, we need to adapt these prevention interventions to meet the specific needs of Black youth and testing them so that way we can make sure we have some research gaps that needs to be filled, okay? So understanding that there's a high need and then there's also a gap, which is why we're here, right? So part of that is that we have to kind of think about, well, what is the difference? What are we missing? What are we missing? So I'm going to I'm going to tickle your brain for just a little bit, and then we're going to definitely get some feedback and answer some questions. But when I worked in corrections and with young people, there is a theory called post-traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. Okay, and we're going to do a very crash course in this. Okay, so basically, Dr. Joy DeGruy, she's a social worker, researcher, whoop whoop social work, and the theory explains kind of about the adaptive survival behaviors within the Black community throughout the United States. Okay, it is a condition that exists as a consequence of multi-generational oppression of Africans and their descendants, resulting in centuries of slavery. A form of slavery which was predicated on the belief that African Americans were inherently and genetically inferior to whites. This was then followed by institutionalized racism, which continues to perpetrate injury. Now, crash course, we all know that the systems that we have are white-centered, and they are built on white culture, which means when things are tested, they were tested on the majority population at the time, which was white. When things are deemed as normal or abnormal behavior, the normalities of the behavior are centered around the white culture. Okay, we know this. This has been proven. We're in this work. We recognize this. That's why we're here today. And so one of the biggest things that Dr. Joy DeGruy brought out, she brings out a lot of things. There's two I want to concentrate on. There's two things that PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, brings out within the Black community, specifically men, right? It's ever-present anger resides just below the surface. It's a seemingly innocuous incidents become potentially dangerous for no apparent rational reason. And so it's this belief that you're walking around with such a weight that any and everything makes you angry, and the rest of the world has no idea why, but it's really tied to systemic disproportion and racism institution, right? So you just step on somebody's foot and they explode. And you can think of a client right now. We all can think of somebody in our life that you're just like, why are they always so angry? Why was that such a big deal? Why do they care? And it's that sense of that there's so much pressure from the outside that has impacted the inside that I get upset when something minor happens, because it's not minor. It's just an additional weight to a ton that's already on me. Okay, so understanding that within our Black youth, that they are walking around with a weight on them. So when something that is minor happens, it may not be big deal to us, but it is everything to them, because there's already so many things that are happening. So when we're looking at signs and symptoms, they can walk around and be happy today and die tomorrow. We know about Twitch. I don't know if you know Twitch, from the dancer. He was on Ellen DeGeneres. I mean, one of the most happiest people in the world. If you ever heard of Twitch, say me in the chat. If you ever heard of Twitch, say me in the chat. He was a dancer. He was fire. He was literally known, y'all, he was literally known for being an amazing soul, happy all the time. The man did a whole TikTok that went viral less than 24 hours before he took his life. Why? Because this population is taught to be strong until something happens that breaks, and that ever-present anger just explodes. And however they deal with it, they deal with it. Some deal with it in violent behavior. Some deal with it in defiant behavior. Some deal with it taking their own life. And we would never know, because we're looking for signs of depression based off of internal and sadness. We're looking at signs of anxiety based off of what white culture has told us it is, but not based off of the experience of the Black community. Because if you were to interview Twitch, he would not have checked the boxes for being suicidal. He would not have checked the boxes for having depression, but that's because we're asking the wrong questions. We're looking at the wrong things within the Black community. So we have to ask ourselves a question: what are the right questions, but also what is the thing that makes them snap? The other thing that Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about is something called vacant esteem. Vacant esteem is the state of believing oneself to have little or no worth, exacerbated by the group and societal pronouncement of inferiority. See, there's something that's low self-esteem, but there's also something that's vacant self-esteem. I believe there's one more click. There we go. So this vacant esteem allows for suicidal ideation to manifest through reckless, life-threatening behaviors. Let's think about it. You're in corrections, you're in violence prevention, you're in the schools, and you're wondering why defiance is so high. You're wondering why fighting is happening. And you're saying, oh, it's because they're have oppositional defiant disorder, or they're have criminal behavior and all these things. Listen, it is directly tied to an idea of suicidal ideation. Let's think about it. If I'm constantly putting myself in a dangerous space, how do I feel about my life? If I know that I could die if I participate in a certain activity over and over again, how do I feel about myself? We must ask ourselves these questions. So that way, when we're looking at the population we're hoping to serve, we have to realize, wow, yes, the external behavior is frustrating and just like, ugh, but that internal thought and belief is very much aligned to suicidal ideation. But when we think about the stigma that's in the Black community, articulating and saying, are you suicidal? Have you thought about taking your own life? No, I wouldn't do that. Why would I do that? No, I'm tough. I have pride. It's loyalty, all those things. But if you ask the young man or the young woman and you ask them instead, if you weren't to wake up tomorrow, how would you feel? They're like, that sounds pretty good to me. I don't mind if I sleep for a long time. If you sleep for a long time, what's that? Death. So what are you doing every day in life to make sure that it's a possibility that you won't wake up tomorrow? You see, the way in which we ask questions to this population is important. The way in which we identify the signs and symptoms are also important. It's easier to have sympathy for someone who shows internal distress than someone who expresses it externally. And so we classify oftentimes people who walk around sad, depressed, refusing to eat, cutting themselves, doing self-harm behaviors. We have empathy for that, and it's easier to have empathy for that. And so we have done the research to figure out how to support them. But when we see someone who is continuously acting out or continuously happy until they're not, we don't know how to address that. And so it is our role within this work to be able to shift that narrative that depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation does not look the same for everyone, and therefore cannot be treated the same for everyone. If you're still with me, say here, because I know I said a lot. Did I lose you? All right. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you some of the things that you've taken away just from what we've shared. Were there any thoughts that kind of lit, like, man, what? Did anything connect? And we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to take some questions. We're going to hear from Tracy. But anything that connected from the work that you do, you can write in the chat or you can unmute based off of what was said. Do you see a client? Do you see a student? Do you see someone and say,
And Sade, here's where I would like to chime in. This is why having collaborative partnerships with organizations like Charday, she can take this and go deeper, and she can provide the resources from Life is Better With You Here and get this message out to the masses. So, like you all too. The other thing that I wanted to add, when you were talking, Charday, it reminded me that our young African American males sometimes put themselves in these positions because they're hopeless, but they don't really know how to say that. And I think of, you guys heard of the suicide bomber. This is like the young Black male suicide bomber, if you think about it. And it just breaks my heart when we see these actions repeatedly happening. And this is what Charday was talking about. A white male student can be seen completely different from an African American male student, and the signs could be different. So just keep all of that in mind too. But I just wanted to add to that piece as well.
Yes, and thank you for that, Tracy. And I hear you, Larry, saying how we communicate with the population that we serve is vital. Thanks for the word. Yes, it really is. And when we're out here and we're doing this work, we have to understand the communication patterns of the population we serve. And Ashley, I see you're saying the lack of self-worth and sense of purpose is very real. This is so much hopelessness that is incredible. When asked, what is your positive for the day? I am alive.
Oh, yes.
What is your goal?
Alive.
Your goal for yourself is to be alive to turn 18. And then we wonder when grades and such are low, they don't see a future for themselves. Ashley, now let's tie that into individuals who are suicidal that check the box. It's the same concept. They don't see a future for themselves. Not only that, the future I see for myself is actually more valuable if I'm not alive. People die by suicide because the burden of being alive is too heavy. People live out dangerous lives because the burden of being alive is too heavy. They both are in situations where they feel that this is what I must do in order to find happiness and peace or to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're treating the young person who thinks like that in a way that it's easier to swallow, if we're just honest, it's easier to swallow. We treat them a little bit differently. In corrections, we put them on the red folder, or even in this work, we may put them on what's called a safety plan. Are we putting young people who are out there doing dangerous activities on safety plans to figure out who is your support system when you feel like going out there doing something reckless? We're not doing that. And it's because we've never been taught to do that. We've never thought about necessarily doing it in that way. And so what you all are saying is essential, which is why working with individuals like Tracy, Life is Better With You Here, because now you're able to see people who look like them on the screen that shows a young person, a young man, a young girl that is saying, listen, I've gone through this, but I'm texting this number 741-741. I'm going through this, but I'm actually going to pick up the phone and call 988. Someone who looks like me is utilizing these resources and I can see it. Someone who lives a lifestyle like me is utilizing the resource so I can see it. I get excited because what if the campaign that went out was geared towards individuals who are about to make a life-changing decision that could lead them to death. And the campaign was not necessarily about, are you feeling depressed? but about the fact of what are you about to do next that could take your life. Call 988. Text 741-741. And the text messages and the calls that they got were more so like, yeah, I was thinking about getting this lick, but I know it's dangerous. When I think about it, I may not be here tomorrow to talk to you. He just admitted he's having suicidal ideation. And he's calling for help to stop him. He's not calling for help to tell you to go and say, I'm about to commit a crime, like, because we can have that, right? But the fact that he called, he's saying in his mind, he's telling you, I've realized that if I do what my friends want me to do in this moment, who are not your friends, but if these people want me to do this moment, I will not be here tomorrow. The same way somebody could call to say, I have a bottle of pills right now. I'm thinking of cutting myself right now. It's the same concept, but we are not trained, nor are we promoting that form of prevention and support.
Sarday, and
yes, please.
no, I'm sorry to interrupt. And I think that's a really nice segue in so much of what your work and, Legacies Empowered Relevant Connections you did with your grant through the center, was to really make sure you're putting those messages and utilizing the amazing Life is Better with You here and putting those messages where people were going to see them. And can you talk for a little bit about how you were able to determine like where that was and how you really reached the audience, not only with the importance of, people being able to identify with what they were seeing, but to ensure they actually saw it to begin with?
Yes, because we believe in influencers. You get influencers for clothes, for shoes, for music. Well, we want mental health influencers. We want prevention influencers. We want SUD influencers, right? And so we actually partnered with youth and young adults, as well as basically individuals, because we know we would love for them to follow all of the wonderful places where you work, right? We would love for them to follow Center of Excellence for OMAS and Adams Boards and all these other places, right? But if we're honest, we all just follow each other. But the people who we actually want to see the stuff, they're following each other. And so we have to engage them. So what we did is we engaged the community and gave them the material so that they posted it on their pages. And we trained them so that way, if they were to get an inquiry or someone were to say something, that then they would know how to refer them to a resource. We definitely have strong partnerships, both with the campaign and just other things in regards to the faith-based community, looking at, who are the stakeholders in your community outside of funding, outside of titles and positions, but who are the relationship stakeholders and how can we engage them in getting this work out? And so when you're looking at what partnerships to have, think about if you're in a school or you're working with schools, think about your student movement president, your band, your football team. What are they putting out on their social media? How is it that you can engage them so that their friends and the people they follow do it? Who is your local rapper that's from your area that everybody thinks is also amazing? Listen, they are there to support. Reach out to them and say, hey, twice a week, can you post this for us, just because we want to get that word out? They're going to engage because they care about their community too. But it's a matter of us going above and beyond and making those connections so that way we can have the results that we want in saving lives. Tracy, did you have anything you want to share as well?
Yes, and to add to that, speaking of influencers, so if you all are working with youth are going to mimic youth. They are going to follow youth. They get their news from social media. Be on social media and have some of your ambassadors be youth. So like a youth-led campaign. We use a lot of youth in our commercials and on our social media. They're helping us to spread the word. We also use local talent. We'll do pop-ups. We also engage our faith-based communities as well. They make for great partnerships also. So really give that one some thought too. And don't sleep on your community recreation centers. They can really be a big source that could really get the word out. We work with quite a few of them here in Franklin County. They have our posters up. We do food drives, coat drives, giveaways. You can look at doing contests. That's another great way to build your partnerships. There's just so many ways to build partnerships. And when you build that partnership, be there for them, because one of the things that we do at Life is Better with You here, when we build the partnerships, we'll go to their events and partner with them and table their events. We also will go to their events and speak at their events, give them materials to pass out their events. So just keep those things in mind as well.
And as she's talking, these are things that she can do for you. So you're thinking like, oh, who is they? She is they. And so reaching out and contacting to say, hey, we're having a parent night, a youth night, we're having a workforce development fair, or whatever the case is. It doesn't have to be tied to mental health for you to have a resource there to save a life. That's a whole nother thing. And many times we only try to have resources available for prevention and mental health and wellness when it's specifically about that. No, at basketball games, at football games, there should be a table for resources. Why? Because statistics tell us that is an extremely high stress environment. Those football players, those basketball players, athletes, all of them have high levels of stress because of performance. Do you have a resource that's available? Because more people are going to come to your football games than they come to mental health night. So allow yourself to have something that's available at these things, right? And so that way you're engaging your community and you're engaging people to save a life. Your barbershops, nail salons, hair salons, wonderful, wonderful places for you to have literature, for you to engage. Where your youth are going. What your community is. Your corner stores where they're going to get some bag of chips and some candy. What does it look like to be able to say, hey, I know they come in here and they be getting on your nerves, but we're trying to keep them alive. What can we do to have a poster up or to partner with you? Yes, Chris, coffee shop. So we thinking of these things and making sure that we are in spaces where the population we want to serve actually exists and naturally go. We don't want to force them to go. We want to be where they naturally are.
Amazing, Sharday. Thank you so much. I saw hand claps, I saw hearts, I saw so many reactions. I don't know if you can see all of them, because I know sometimes when we're presenting, we can't see all the reactions. I do want to be mindful of our time. I hate to cut you off, but I want to hold a little bit of space for some Q&A. I have just so thoroughly enjoyed learning from both of you. So I think you caught me writing notes through this whole thing and, taking down some quotes from you. So thank you. I wish I could listen to you all day long. I would like to invite our attendees to either unmute or write some questions in the chat for our panelists.
And if you don't have questions, we'd love to hear what you thought is most impactful about this conversation today. And, what are some of your major takeaways? And I'll say for me, especially during all the prep, it's that constant reminder you have to meet people where they're at. It's not mental health night, right? It is the Friday night football games. It is those corner stores and, the gas stations and wherever your young people are at, even if they're controversial, find them, get your messages out there.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Go where your target population is naturally. Don't make them come to you. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I love the reminder that warning signs will look different for different kids. So important. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Yes, and I see Chris has their hand up.
Yeah, the thing that really stood out to me is just like when you were talking about how uh African Americans can have like different signs and symptoms of being suicidal. And I'm gonna be honest, I never really considered or thought that, but it makes total sense because people aren't a monolith, other behaviors aren't gonna be a monolith, but like going through school, we're really only taught like the general same symptoms over and over and over of how to see it. We're never really taught that it's like there can be other signs and symptoms. So I thought that was really impactful.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you for sharing that. And as a Black woman that went to a HBCU, I did not learn that until my own lived experience doing the work, which just goes to the fact of how, we are all impacted by the system that has been created. And it is our job now as we are enlightened to therefore make those changes and do our part to make sure that there are changes that are done. So thank you, Chris.
And I'll say, peeling back all of the layers of the onion, if you will, to identify some of these root causes, but really to that point, how things, how risks, how it manifests differently, and suicidal ideation manifests differently, in this community in particular makes so much sense. And you're right, like we don't spend enough time thinking about that. So really grateful, Sharday, Tracy, everybody who's put in the chat to have your lens on this topic. And I think we're all walking away today just a little bit, just considering things differently.
Ashley has the comment, we talk about cultural competency practice, but the system that guides the process is now culturally aware and competent. And that is where we are needed to be voices for advocacy and change to the DSM and college courses. Girl, that's a whole nother session. Why you do that to us? Why you do that? We got 5 minutes left, but yes, drop the mic. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, Ashley, we're slating you in for January.
Yeah, you are so right.
I was thinking about during the learning and stuff how this kind of ties back into trauma-informed care and how a lot of the education that I've received on trauma-informed care kind of lacks that, generational trauma, how Black people can interpret things differently than other people because it just, there's that generational trauma aspect to it. And so I'm really glad I attended today because now I have a lot more perception and things to add to my trauma-informed tool belt that I didn't have before. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, McKenna.
Yeah, thank you. With that in mind, that's a great note to end on, and we hope that you're all adding more lenses, tools to your tool belt, however that looks. And that's the point of these conversations every month is, hopefully we're learning a little bit about science, we're learning a little bit about evidence-based practices, but we're gaining so much more in just the opportunity to connect with and share perspectives with each other. So please, there's a request, Sharday and Tracy, if you could put your contact information in the chat, that would be amazing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick as we close out today. Make sure you can see us. I just, as promised, wanted to share our QR code so that if you're not connected with the Center of Excellence and not receiving our monthly newsletter, you have the opportunity to do so. We don't spam you. It's a once a month email, but a great way to stay connected with more events such as these. And of course, we welcome you to follow us on social media if you're not doing that already. And I believe, finally, oops, one slide too far. Last thing is, if you could share love with the presenters and share respect for the presenters, thank you so much again, Sharday, Tracy, and Tessa for moderating, of course, but truly for giving your time and your expertise to us today. To the audience members, thanks for telling us what you think about today's session. I believe there is a field in there where you could enter topics that you'd like to see us cover in future sessions. So with that, we're going to give you 3 minutes back on your Thursday, and it might be, at least in Central Ohio, one of the last few days to get out there before all the rain and, traditional fall weather hits. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thanks again to all of you for joining us, and we will see you. We'll take off December. We'll have November 30th. That'll be our next prevention exchange. So we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.